Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's nice to talk to you again. We are, as we continue going through my book, Thank You, Mrs.G, which you will find on Amazon websites, Author House websites, and a few other websites. If you could just Google, Thank You, Mrs.G, Nohle Makiwa, you'll be able to find, whatever website you want to buy it on. I just realized I said that last week. So this week I wanted to say to you, I have an interview coming up on in a couple of days, and depending on how things go, next week I will be posting that interview instead of a talk. And so it will be, I'm going to have a Zoom interview with one of the Zimbabwean pages, prominent pages, and it's going to be, I'm looking forward to it, just to discuss my book. And also, after that, then I want to start on rebranding Africa, which is, as we know, Africa, and I mentioned that in my book, was branded as a very poor, dark continent, ignorant people, all those things, and therefore, I just feel like it needs rebranding. And I'm hoping that I'm starting on a journey that many will follow, and as many people can join this movement where we rebrand Africa, it will be very good because we have enough to show. As I said, my elder son is a brand consultant, and when he told me about branding, I just was very interested and realized that it's so connected to colonization and how we can deconstruct this thinking, because it's all psychological. The warfare we have is really psychological, and therefore we have to go into people's psyche in order to destroy what was built and rebuild something new. So that's that. And this week, though, I want to talk about us representing our country, uh, our countries, and I want to talk about the value and the importance of it. The first president of the black president of the United States was a man who was half African, half Kenyan, if you like, and who was not afraid, who was very unapologetic. As a matter of fact, he took a journey. His father had died. He didn't have to take the journey. His father had died, but he took a journey to go to his origins, and he had, conversations with his grandfather, where his grandfather told him about the Mau Mau uprising, whose records had been hidden. We know now that they were, tortured, raped, and so many other atrocities. And he brought that to light when he went to you know to Kenya. And 50 years these records were hidden, and in 2012 they were all, they came up to light. And of course it was him, because his grandfather was one of the Mau Mau who rose, and therefore, history was rewritten, which is very important. Not enough history are telling people are telling our history. And when he was running for president, as you know, one of his uh, critics, the biggest critics, who was Trump, who came against him with the Bertha movement, which he formed, where he was arguing that he was born in Kenya. And of course, he still won, which shows that there's something, good, something good comes out of standing on your origins, really defending who you really are. There's no, and I'm talking because of the fact that, as I said to you, I get very worried when I see young people who want to say they're Irish, they're African, and they're Irish. They want to just drop the rest of it. You are Afro-Irish, and be proud of that. And I'll go again, another example of Joe Biden, who was, when the Brexit talks were going on, when he was campaigning, he was very, very categorical about the fact that he was not going to support uh, anything that destroyed the Good Friday Agreement, because he has Irish roots, and we should be, as Africans, we should be proud of this. Um, Last week I spoke about you know an incident with my son bullying, and I want to say to you, in case you just say it was ordinary bullying, it went on. There's a lot of things that happened, and I want to talk next week about how policy and they say, oh, racism is rooted in ignorance and hate, and a guy called Ibrahim X Kendi argues that no, actually, and it's true, that the racist policies that were put by people who were really respected. I mean, think about Samuel Cartwright, who was diagnosing slaves who were suckers, who were diagnosed slaves who wanted to run away, that something was wrong with their heads, and all those, and therefore, they had to be medicated. Think about Samuel Morton, who, Crania versus Crania, Crania Americana, which I've spoken about, who was saying, put people into 5 categories, races, and said, the African is right at the bottom. So really, he argues that it is in people, educated people, and he says that racism is really racist policies that are put, and because a racist, somebody, which explains why perhaps a black person cannot be racist, because you don't have the power. You don't have the power. You can say racist things, but they won't hurt somebody's life. But then if there's racism, as I said to you about my son, it went to a place where authority was involved, but because authority was racist, then obviously it went nowhere. There were not enough um, white, there were not enough white people, even those, they were good white people who were there, but they did not have the courage to actually stand and be witnesses to the fact that this was done, a bullying incident that happened that landed him in hospital. But so then it shows, that's why I was reading this Candy guy, and who obviously he came from, he's a professor, he won so many awards, and he's written a book called How to Be an Anti-Racist. And it's a very powerful book, and I think it was released in 2019. I can't remember. I'm going to get a copy myself, but I've been reading, sort of following him. A very interesting talk, and it really talks about the fact that you have to have power in order to be racist. Racist, I can call somebody a whitey, whatever, but then it won't go away. But if there are racist policies and racist ideas, they are the ones that keep people oppressed, because without power, really, racism is nothing. So and therefore, um, I really recommend that if you're a parent, buy your child this book. There's so many other books written, and I recommend as well Decolonizing. I'll tell you about this Decolonizing the Mind, which was written by Ngugi, Wa Thiong'o. He's a Kenyan man as well, a very, very good writer. And I mentioned him in my book. He's one of my really mentors when it comes to this kind of topic. I actually realized he wrote the book after, when I was writing my book. So I felt really humbled to think that this thing that was going on in my mind had been thought by a great scholar. But I thought it's important for us to write books these are people with doctorates and up there, and it's important for us to write simplified books which can be read by ordinary people who don't know all these social justice terms and everything, and just break them down really to the everyday language. So this man, the decolonization. One thing that I was upset about, my country, Zimbabwe, got its independence in 1980, and this is the year that this book, Decolonizing the Mind, was released by Ngugi. And of course, Kenya got its independence in 1963, but he was jailed, and there's a big story about it, which I write in my book. And I'm really upset that this book was not introduced by the government into the curriculum. This is the one thing that we are really fighting. The curriculum has not changed much from the time from the time of colonization. No, this is the fight that we should have, to make sure that the curriculum is changed. All those stories that were whitewashed are really told in the way that they happened. So it's one of the things. I'm not a great scholar, but I love reading about my continent and everything. So it's a very important. And I think to myself, in 1980, if this book had been released and it had been put in by the government, it would have helped a lot of people. But strangely enough, in that 1980, there was a school open by the Banda, who was, country neighboring mine in Malawi, and he opened a school called, the Eton of Africa, basically. And he wanted those children to speak English. They couldn't speak their language. And these are people who had got their independence in about in the 60s, I think 60 something. Uh, so he wanted to replicate the Eton Worthy, and he wanted to create a middle class. Uh, this shows, I argue, this shows how colonized the leaders that we had after independence were. And of course, in my country, I think there's a few things that were wrong, but at least, and Kamuzu Banda actually spoke to his people. He had an interpreter who would speak, you know, um, uh, say he would speak in English whenever he's doing a rally, and somebody would speak in, which is really, you couldn't call that person a liberator. But of course, they never went to war. So I'm sure the British were happy to have somebody who really was just going to continue the colonization. This happened in a lot of countries. So, and that's why I'm saying, like, I want young people to be able to know who they are and stand and speak. If somebody's calling you, whatever name, you need to know that Africa is a very is a world vital region. It's a very, very important region. Uh, in the world, and 30% of the world resources, mineral resources, come from Africa, and we know that there's about 700 military in Africa looking after the interests of the US. You can read that if you like, but it's important for us to kind of be knowledgeable. The Nigerians are making waves in America, as we know, um, making waves, and they are, apparently 61% of Nigerians over 25 have a doctorate or something. Not that a doctorate is important, it is, of course, but I just want to make sure that everybody is included. you know. Nigerians have made a big contribution to the medicine in America, and of course, um, I think 41% of them were born in Nigeria. They're going there, but it's very important to stand your ground, as talk about your origins. And I just wanted today to talk to you, to tell you how rich your continent is, so that you can walk with pride. You don't have to say I'm British. You don't have, I've seen kids like that. I've seen people with beautiful accents. Oh, it's very impressive. I must say, you're born here and you speak like them. But for by George, like them say, for God's sake, don't forget who you are. Speak like them and everything. And really, I'm not being funny, but if you refuse you're just a parrot. You're just really just copying what they say, and you're not using your brain to actually take pride in who you are, which is very important, because they know you're not 100% British, and they know that you are just, you've just been groomed to become one of them. So you'll always be a copy. You'll never be an original. Right. And I think you should know that it's beautiful to speak that accent. And then when you speak it, you then tell them, I'm actually from Nigeria, or I'm actually from whatever, being born here, of course, you're part of this here, but you're also part of Africa. And there's no shame in that. It is something to be very proud of, considering the resources. There's 2,500, I think, languages in Africa, rich in culture, beautiful, and it's wonderful. And these Americans who are spending so much money. Samuel L. Jackson went to find out a lot of high profile people who are going back to find out where they come from, because they are slaves. I was watching one video yesterday. uh, his guy Sterling Brown, he was literally crying when he was told that he's from Africa. He was literally crying, shaking when they were, looking back to his roots. When they go back, and he saw a letter written by his great whatever, who came as a slave, literally crying. And we are Africans, we know our roots, and we are there just taking this as nothing. It is so important. It is so, he literally cried, because I think he's always one. He says, I hear people say I'm Italian, I'm everything, but inside of him, he always felt that he was African. And it was so good, to hear it confirmed by those people who trace the ancestry. It's very interesting, and we are here just throwing away the fact. I'm really proud of my origins. So let's talk about how I have had to educate. I've met lovely Irish people, lovely, brilliant, and who would say things, you know out of ignorance, just not knowing. They'll say, um certain things that, okay, I'll tell you a story that happened. The I okay, I won't tell that story actually, because there's probably it involves some people who might work out who I'm talking about. But just to tell you that I've had to defend myself as an African, and educate some people, and um, tell them what, the fact that Irish people were oppressors in abroad, and they were, oppressed. Of course, they were oppressed, they were colonized, but they were African, Irish people who came to Africa. I grew up with African, sorry, I grew up with Irish people. I knew all those Maireads, Sineads. I knew those names from Africa, because they were one of the some of they were part of the British settlers who came to my country. So if you are Irish, you need to know that you have ancestors that went to colonize, were part of the colonization. You are also that were also part of the enslavement of people. Of course, some of them were endangered servants, but definitely part of the oppressive, um, um, what do you call it, team. Okay. So let's talk about. I just want to talk about the fact that our resources, mineral resources, right at the top is South Africa, which the most precious, which is gold and diamond. And of course, surprise, surprise, both mines are not owned by Africans. De Beers still owns the diamonds and and an Anglo group, you know, company owns the gold in South Africa. So there it is. We have the gold. It's just ours in name, but it's owned by other people. Okay, so really, when you think about it, they said 41%. I think it's 43% of British people were asked, and they thought colonization was a good thing. And I think about 23% didn't know either way. So the curriculum here does not tell the truth. And there's a lot of people fighting for that to be done. People like Kayindi Andrews, I like that guy very much. He's a debate. He's done a few debates on Good Morning. If you Google him, you'll be very interested if you're African. He's of Afro-Caribbean descent, but he's really a strong believer. And he says, like Abraham, there was a time when he thought, oh, black people, you're made to think that. They deserve, the suffering they deserve. They're just not wise enough or anything. Because these people, they are called assimilate, assimilationists, Anyway, I'm not very good at this word, but it's a social justice term. But these are people who believe that um, uh, Africans, black people, are born inferior, but you can nurture them to become better. And of course, they have examples of people who are, they are. And then, of course, the segregationists are the people who believe that we are just, doomed, we are inferior and we should be kept there. Probably the KKK, right? But it's very important for you to read about these scholars, and don't even try, read any book and be ready for answers. Even the Bible, they say, study to show yourself approved. Because when you are able, the reason why you will hide and say, I'm Irish, is because you don't know enough about Africa to be proud of it. So if you don't know, you're going to deny your origin. So let's go. I said South Africa, and I had my papers here. Okay, South Africa is obviously, like I said, the two major minerals. Let's go to Nigeria. And Nigeria, by the way, like I said, I can't remember if you said it in this video, but the Nigerians really constitute, a high percentage of the most. In fact, they are the fastest, the most successful ethnic group in America. That's Nigerians for you. So, and economists believe in 2100, Nigeria will be the superpower. And I couldn't believe it either. I know that China just sprung like that in 70 years. They moved 850 million people from poverty, but it looks like Nigeria is following suit, and by 2100, Nigerians are going to be the superpower. Unfortunately, I won't be alive then, but it will be very interesting to see that happen. So Nigeria, of course, Nigeria is rich in uranium, coal, cement, and gold. Brilliant. And Namibia is rich in uranium, diamonds, zinc, lead, sulfur, salt, titanium, copper. And Congo I spoke about the Congo, about cobalt, about how every phone that, phones we wouldn't have phones if it wasn't because of the cobalt that comes from there. It's important for you to remind people whenever you find yourself in a situation where you have to defend yourself as a Congolese person, you have so much to be proud of. Okay, so with Congo, it's copper, cobalt, um, oil, coltan, gold, and tin. So there's so much to be proud of. We will be proud of our culture as well, which is absolutely amazing. So I'm really, I just believe that you need to be knowledgeable about your past so that you're able to stand and say, no, we are progressive. So to be honest, this is Africa is the future. It really is the future. And don't dodge, don't feel ashamed. Be like the Obamas of this day and speak out and be able to think to talk about your country and be proud of it, because we will go into the um, we will go into rebranding and everything. So that's all I have for you this week. And as I said, next week I will be posting the interview I'm going to have with one of the major platforms in Zimbabwe, and Facebook platforms, and it will be posted. And I think they are actually right now promoting the interview, which I will post next week instead of me talking. And then the week after, I will talk to you again. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And God bless you. I hope if this has helped you, please like and share and comment. Thank you so much. Bye bye.